That was about all I know. Knew about electrical engineering. In those days, one didn't ask too many questions. You just sort of, chose something and went on with it. And because we were used to working hard, there was not any obstacle that we would just not bulldoze through. So, I still remember sort of trying to figure out Schrodinger's equation in physics and then saying, well, the heck with it, I can't figure this thing out. So I just memorized the 2 pages. No, I don't advocate that, but I'm just saying that's sort of the attitude that we had. We just bulldozed our way through. I think my sort of intellectual journey began after my PhD. I joined as a faculty member at the University of New Mexico, and they became an opportunity to work in the semiconductor processing area. Now, my work was in electromagnetic wave diffraction, and this was semiconductor processing. I knew nothing about it. Only thing is that the director of the center came. He said, "I have some money." I said, "I will do it." Didn't even know what he was going to talk about. He said, we're going to work on a measurement of ultra small devices. I said, "Sounds good to me." And that's how the journey began into semiconductor metrology, which is the science of measurement, and we used electromagnetic wave diffraction to do inverse modeling. So you looked at how the light scattered, and you mathematically reconstructed the structure that was reflecting the light. This was monochromatic laser radiation. There were periodic structures, so there was a mathematically defined solution to it, and it turned out to be phenomenally accurate because it has a limit of λ/2, and as far as resolution is concerned, but we were talking 3-dimensional reconstruction of surfaces. And I'm talking now early 90s time frame, and we were, I think, Pentium 6, Pentium 7. But in any case, we had just crossed the micron limit as far as the transistors were concerned, and not on our way down. And now you're talking about 7 nanometer devices. Yeah. But even at that time, we had demonstrated the kinds of accuracy that existed. And I say this because that then led to my partner. I was a theoretician, and I had a partner faculty member, Bob McNeil, soul rest in peace. He was the experimentalist, and we both worked together. We had a joint research group that we worked on, and he was the practical person. And this was always something that amazed me about Americans, how practical they were. I mean, they could fix doors, they could use machines, they could work with lathes, they could, work with aluminum, they knew CAD, just all of them. And it was fantastic. So they built a machine, patented that, and actually built a small company around that. Now comes the interesting question that any of you who lives abroad faces, and that is that question, so where are you from? It's not a question that you can avoid, because look at yourself, look at the mirror, okay, and look where you are. They're going to ask that question, where are you from? Which is okay. You said, where you are from. And then any gathering that you have, I mean, we have, Pakistanis sitting together, the question will be, okay, wapas kab ja rahe? When are you? How are you? It's an incessant question. It is in every single baithak that there is, and anybody, sooner or later, dinner, Eid dinner, whatever, get together, old friends, new friends, this is a question that comes up. And it's a question that, I got quite sick of. I mean, life was very good in America. It's a fantastic country. You work hard, you get ahead. But there was this pull, and I said, well, I either put up or shut up. So it's great. You want to live there? That's fantastic. And my sisters stayed there. My brother-in-law, they're very, very successful. But I decided that I wanted to try to come back. So in fact, my brother-in-law and I gave a proposal at that time to Sayyid Babar Ali that we wanted to build a school of engineering in Lums. That didn't quite work out. This is now mid-19th, but then I learned about GIK Institute, and I said, hey, this sounds very interesting. And I was coming up for tenure, and then I got tenure, and I was eligible for a sabbatical. So I said, okay, I'll take a sabbatical. And half of the sabbatical I did research work in Switzerland, but half of it I went to GIK. And said, let me look at this. So, my wife, I must give credit to her. She's been very game. I've been dragging her from one part of the world to another. With two small kids, we landed up in GIK. And here was a brand new university coming up. And, exactly what I was looking for, a place where we could, do modern engineering, educate, campus. It was wonderful. So after the sabbatical, you went back for a year, which you have to do, and then resigned and came back to join GIK. And that's where we met Mansoor and Farooq and Ismail Shah. Each has become, mashallah, so phenomenally successful as they got along. And we had, I believe, by far the finest faculty group in electrical engineering in Pakistan at that time. And the sky was the limit, because we defined the curriculum, the rules, state of the art, we had equipment, and it was just sort of full steam ahead in trying to do what we wanted to do. But there were problems also. And, Pakistan is a hard country. Okay, it's a tough place. It is what it is because there are problems. So when we sit abroad, we wear rose-colored glasses, especially if you're young, but it's a tough place. And so, there were jealousies and stupidities, because eventually what happened was that the school at GIK, it was a disaster. It was absolutely terrible. How could all of us who are, PhDs from the top institutions of the world send our kids to basically, it just was a non-entity, and it would have taken nothing. There was not much money involved in that investment, but they wouldn't do it. And that was sort of, part of the reason. The other part of the reason is that they decided to create a governance structure which had duality in it. See, Pakistan का एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है कंट्रोल. एक चीज होती है ये सेठ मेंटालिटी. From the prime minister down, नया हो पुराना हो, they are all just thinking, we want to control. If only we could control all aspects of things, we would be able to sort it out. And so the board, in its wisdom, decided, okay, they're going to have a rector, but the person underneath him, who was the head of administration, was going to report directly to the board. So you have an organization with two heads, basically. ना एक मियान में दो तलवारें होती हैं, ना एक organization में दो reportings होती हैं इस तरह से. And yeah, that was sort of part of the thing that just cascaded and eventually led to us, and some other issues also led to all of us leaving GIK. But we left the system, we left the curriculum, we left the examination systems, the way things were, the laboratories and all that. And to this day, GIK is functioning as a good institution, and those systems remain. And that is, I guess, one lesson that one learns. First, that it is going to be very hard and tough. You'll have to fight many battles. Second, when you build systems, it takes a lot more to break them. So then went into joined a startup in Pakistan, and it was, a breathtaking experience. Unfortunately, there was the telecom bust of 2000. Otherwise, I would have been driving possibly 1 or 2 Ferraris at least up till now, but I'm not doing that. So that such is life. And then we had, actually things were very, very bad at that time. This is the late 90s, and you had this Karz Utaro Murk Savaro program. Prime Minister was, I think, there was a musical chair between Benazir, Nawaz Sharif and all of that. Hopes would go up, then be crashed. And then we had the coup, and President Musharraf came, and then those first 3 years, hooked up with Dr. Atta, then there was this whole reform movement of higher education. This was a reform movement of the world, actually, because the study started from the World Bank paper, Perils and Promise 2000. You can look it up. And there was a task force of higher education that was recommended to be created, and Pakistan was one of the first countries in the world to actually create a proper task force with lots of different academics. So got involved in that, and that led to the formation of a 12-member steering committee for the reform of higher education in Pakistan. I was a member of that. That gave the idea of the Higher Education Commission, and then created the Higher Education Commission in 2002. And so I was the only member of the committee that actually joined the commission, and 2 years later became the executive director. And then basically went sort of, bang smack in the middle of the government of Pakistan. So working with all bureaucrats, with the cabinet, with the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Planning. And it was a very heady experience, because with Dr. Atta, you had that blanket cover that if you're doing something right, you just go on. Plus the law of HEC had been structured to protect the commission and members, and also the executive secretariat. So you couldn't fire me, actually. I was the executive director, and would have had to have done something horrendous for that. But also remember that this is Pakistan. The rules and regulations only work to some degree to protect you. But in any case, we got a runway to do things. And that was the time when all of the programs for the reform of higher education were evolved. All the scholarships, we had thousands upon thousands of scholarships. I'm talking, 10,000 plus or 20,000 plus scholarships that were given. Of the creation of the Pakistan Education Research Network, you name it. When we had an idea, we had the ability to implement it, and worked so fast that nobody was able to catch up or figure out what the heck we were doing, and we were, far ahead. And the universities responded. You had the creation of NUST. I mean, NUST started with a piece of paper. That's how it was at that point in time. And then we had a plan. And the plan was that we would go systematically through disciplines. And the first one we tackled was engineering. Because in the first 55 years of Pakistan's existence, 5 PhDs graduated in engineering from Pakistan. And that is also probably a generous there was no research, the labs were destroyed, the faculty didn't have funding, there was nothing basically. And so the vice chancellors and the HEC, they worked as one team. Okay, there was no master or this or that, or it was we just got together, and each and every university just blossomed, some much more than others. I mean, like you had the Balochistan University of IT and Management Sciences. My God, I mean, it started out in a mill. It was an old abandoned textile mill, and you look at it now, I mean, 10,000 students and great education, links to all the world, and it was one thing after another that we had. So we started with engineering, then we went to agriculture, then we went to medicine, then we went to sciences, and, humanities and social sciences, and there was just so much to do.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was the antithesis of control. So you create systems and you create institutions so that when things go wrong, as they did afterwards in HEC, then you couldn't destroy the institution that was created. Or there were just too many things out there that were functioning that you couldn't mess with. There were too many people who had come up. There was just too strong a leadership. There were too many faculty members. Pakistan's research utterly exploded in the world. It is one of the few areas in the world in which, or for Pakistan, in which we increased our share in the world. So if we had 1% of research publications in the world, we went up to 2%. We were ranked 54 in the world in terms of research output. We have now come to 34. On a per capita basis, Pakistan's research output, I'm talking Scopus indexed research output, is higher than that of India. And that was a question of systems creation. Brought the tenure track system, changed the faculty salary structure, created these innovation centers and a focus on innovation. So, fantastic heady times. Then again, of course, as the politicians grew in power, then it came down to, a tussle with HEC, with the Ministry of Education. So the Secretary of Education comes into my office. He says, the Prime Minister has appointed me to take over. I said, well, it's illegal. You can do it, but I mean, so what can you do? I mean, if the government itself commits the illegality. So we went to the Supreme Court. My brother fought the case, and HEC was saved at that point in time. But I left and then did some consulting work with the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and then joined LUMS. And at LUMS then it was a question of, all the things, the policies that we were creating for universities. Well, now you were one of the universities and you had to implement that. Okay. So, the whole, whether it was a tenure track system, focus on research, launch of graduate programs, and also an understanding of what does it take to be ranked in the world. Now, ranking is a double-edged sword. It's a question that, are you slave to something else? But it is also has this aspect that it is transparent. There is a question that how much, what has been the impact of your research? What is the impact of your graduates? What are their starting salaries? What does the world think about them? So we focused on that. And during my 5-year tenure, we went from LUMS being ranked 190 in QS Asia rankings to where the target was to cross and to be a part of top 100, and it did that in 2018. Working in strengthening undergraduate education, undergraduate research, graduate research, diversifying the faculty, opened the new school of law. So I mean, it was a fantastic, dynamic experience. And then one of the things, really happy about was the start of the LUMS Center for Entrepreneurship. I've always believed that Pakistan's future lies in entrepreneurship. And so in 2013, we said we will launch Pakistan's largest entrepreneurial space. And that largest space was 2,500 square feet. Yeah. But we started from there. Those cohorts then we won the award for establishing the National Incubation Center, first in Lahore, then in Quetta with the Butams. And today, you see what impact entrepreneurship is having in Pakistan. These, hundreds of millions of dollars being invested and valuations, etc. It means that the idea was right. and the belief that one has in the talent that is Pakistan, and if you were to give it the rules of the game, and if I mean, so what was the secret sort of source of success? And it was simply an absolute adherence to merit. In all these years, 2000, this is now 2021. There's not been one single person who's something, you know, or anybody has said that this person or this award was made not on merit. And that's what happened. I mean, we have people, you know, with father having studied up till 3rd grade, mother being illiterate, and 5 children now having PhDs and being faculty members in different parts of the world. Not one. I mean, and these are stories that go on and on. You know, even within our HEC, you know, children of the secretaries, children of the Naib Qasid, becoming anything and everything. We are in Pakistani very, very class-based. It's and if you want to see the opposite side of that, at some point in your life, I would advise you to come across the Iron Curtain. I live now in Kyrgyzstan, part of what used to be the Soviet Union. And if there is any real equality in the true Islamic sense, it exists over here. You know, if there is a Christmas party at the end of the year, then your driver and his wife will also be sitting at the table with you. And, you know, there is just no assumption that there is this difference between us. You know, that वो माली का बच्चा जो you know बगैर जूते के बाहर फिर रहा है, तो आपको ख्याल भी नहीं आएगा कि भाई क्यों स्कूल क्यों नहीं जा रहा? What the heck is it, and why is it? And you know, this is how we grew up, and at least for myself, I can say I have to check myself to think other way. Otherwise, I will definitely ignore this blatant fact. Why? Why is the Mali's kid not in school? Okay, so there are, you know, we find ourselves in the situation that we are in Pakistan because of what we have done, because of the fact that we are not raising our voices, and it is now the youth that has to take up that responsibility. In the field of higher education, I can say that Pakistan has a very, very large and a very robust system now. It has to go to the next stage. And the next stage is of impact. And how in the world does one have impact? And entrepreneurship is one way, getting into government is one way, writing about it is another way, whatever it is, through economic power, because if you don't have economic power, you are not anything, which is what is happening right now. I mean, we get 2 kids coming from Washington, D.C. telling us what the terms are going to be. And we have to ask ourselves this question: why in the hell world did we find ourselves in that situation? And don't we have 2 kids who are just as smart, who could have told us? In fact, they did tell us. You read the papers, even just the editorials, the opinion pieces, they tell you, don't do this, you're headed to disaster. But we will go ahead and do it. And until the gun is at our head, we're not going to change our ways. That's not the way. But on a positive front, and I think I will conclude here, this part of it, I would say the youth of Pakistan is capable of the greatest heights in the world. There is no reason to limit anything as to what can be achieved, whether they want to create a mission to Mars, or whether they want to provide clean drinking water to the nation, whatever the case may be. Everything is possible if you invest in people, in education, and provide them the opportunity. Okay, I'll stop here.
बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग आपका फेज़ है फर्स्ट। सर एक दो चीज़ें मैं क्लियर ज़रा पूछना चाहूँगा। फर्स्ट ये कि आपने जो उसमें हाईलाइट किया GIK का थोड़ा अनफॉर्चुनेट इंसिडेंट्स, और दूसरा GIK से बाद जब आप आए इसमें एज एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर और आपने प्रोफेसर ताउर रहमान साहब का काम किया, सो क्लियरली मुझे एक चीज़ तय का जो हमारी डिस्कशन होती है उसमें ये डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स लोग कहते हैं, आई वांट टू नो द एग्जैक्ट स्टोरी। क्या ताउर रहमान साहब वाज डेवलप के गवर्नमेंट के प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर हमने चलना है, या हम पाकिस्तान में जैसे आपने बताया कि इंटरनेशनल हमारा HEC की रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी उन्होंने बनाई, लेकिन उसका जो रिज़ल्ट आया वो ये कि डिग्रीज़ तो यूनिवर्सिटीज़ ने दी, लेकिन वो जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ एंड ऑल डैट वो एक अलग उसमें इंसिडेंस हुआ। सो आप उनकी पॉलिसीज़ के साथ एग्री करते हैं या आपका उनके साथ मतलब कंपैटिबल नहीं हुआ? क्या ऐसी चीज़ थी कि जो मैं फेस फील कर
नहीं, डॉक्टर अता के साथ किसी किस्म की कोई इनकम्पैटिबिलिटी की बात नहीं है। वो एक ऐसे शख्स हैं कि यू कैन एब्सोल्युटली ओपनली डिसएग्री विद हिम। This is a very rare quality. We fought on things. I would, put my foot down and say, "Is tarah se nahi hoga." He would put his foot down. We would argue it out. So there was never any question about that. Now, as far as you see, एक बहुत बड़ा अलमिया जो है ना पाकिस्तान का, जो कि अभी भी मैं I still struggle with that. इसकी इतनी चीजें खराब हैं तो आदमी किस चीज की तरफ तवज्जो दे?
सही बात।
एंड आई मीन एक एग्जांपल ले लें, आप दफ्तर जा रहे होंगे तो सड़क जो है वो टूटी हुई होगी, नई बनी थी वो खराब होगी, लाइट पे पहुंचे, लाइट नहीं चल रही, यहाँ मोटरसाइकिल वाले जो है उल्टी सीधी वो हर तरफ आगे पीछे दाएं बाएं चल रहे हैं, हॉस्पिटल में ये ना होता ये है कि आपका दिल जलता है, आप कहते हैं मैंने ये भी ठीक करना। इफ यू वेस्ट योर टाइम ऑन दिस थिंग, ओके, देन यू नॉट गोइंग टू डू इट, बी एबल टू अकम्प्लिश एनीथिंग। सो इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एटलीस्ट, ओके, दिस इज द वे आई डेल्ट विद इट, कि आंखों पे सॉर्ट ऑफ ब्लाइंडर्स लगाए कि यार ये काम करना है। हमारा काम था हायर एजुकेशन, हमारा काम लोअर एजुकेशन नहीं था। बहुत दफा सवाल हुआ कि जी स्कूल तो जैसे हैं, स्कूलों में ये नहीं है, टाट बिछी हुई है, उस्ताद नहीं है, खराब है। कि यार उस सवाल के जवाब में हम क्या कर सकते हैं? हम ये कर सकते हैं कि वी कैन इंप्रूव टीचर एजुकेशन, ओके, वी क्रिएट अ टीचर एजुकेशन एक्रेडिटेशन काउंसिल सो दैट देयर इज अ मैकेनिज्म ऑफ क्वालिटी अश्योरेंस। फाइन। मेडिसिन में ये खराबी है, हम क्या कर सकते हैं? मेडिकल रिसर्च नहीं है, ठीक है। PMDC का बिल्कुल मतलब एक स्ट्रैंगल होल्ड एजुकेशन के ऊपर था, वो रिसर्च नहीं करने दे। बायोकेमिस्ट्री का PhD जो है जॉन्स हॉपकिंस से एजुकेटेड कैन नॉट बी टीचिंग एज अ फैकल्टी मेंबर इन अ यूनिवर्सिटी। इट्स एब्सोल्युटली नट्स, ओके। सो There are all kinds of lobbies और ये जगह बनी हुई, और आदमी को सोचना है कि भाई करना क्या है, किस तरफ कौन सी वाली जंग लड़नी है, कितनी जंगें लड़ के जीती जा सकती हैं और क्या हो सकता है। So the whole thing was that you have to pushing these things away, okay. And you just have to keep try your focus. Now, employment जो है वो focus नहीं है. It's not that. Now, what we could do was to push higher education into entrepreneurship, so you could have job creation. But you could not do the rest of the thing. Now, the idea was bigger, and that is why economics is not a discipline that is run by a finance ministry or state bank. इकोनॉमिक्स अगर आपने मुल्क की तरक्की करनी है तो फिर मुल्क को इन्वॉल्व होना पड़ेगा, वरना तो वही है जो अभी हम देख रहे हैं। मतलब वी हैव अ great PhD as a state bank governor, we have probably a well-meaning finance minister and everything, but we can't. But until the country gets its policies act together, you can't do anything. So there are limits. So एक इदारा जो कुछ कर सकता है मतलब जैसे आला तालीम में, वो हमने किया। But beyond that, it's linked to employment and creation of new enterprises, creating an environment for foreign to invest in, that is a much bigger piece of the pie. And so you push the government and you ask them, do you want to create a knowledge economy? तुम्हारे मुल्क का सबसे बड़ा असासा तुम्हारे बच्चे हैं।
सही बात।
इस बाकी ये जो सब कुछ है, जितनी भी हमारे पास वेल्थ है, चाहे रिको डिको, चाहे जो मर्जी हो, it pales in comparison to what the humans are capable of. But the country has to make up its mind that is the greatest asset that we have as opposed to the greatest liability.
बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है। और ये सर जो मेरा ख्याल है कि हम उस पर वो आज जैसे आपने कहा कि उस सवाल का जवाब हम ये नहीं है कि हम जो है बच्चों के टीचर नहीं हैं, हम टीचर को ट्रेन कर सकते हैं। इसी चीज़ को आगे अब लेते हुए हमारी इस वक्त जो रिसर्च पैराडाइम है, डेट आई फील कि देयर इज़ ए ह्यूज गैप, लाइक जैसे आपने थ्योरेटिकल एंड एक्सपेरिमेंटल अप्रोचेस में देखा जाए, उसमें वो आगे से जब हम क्योंकि मैंने मास्टर गवर्नमेंट यूनिवर्सिटी से किया तो वहाँ पे ये होता था जी हमारे पास फंडिंग नहीं है, हम आपको वो प्रोवाइड नहीं कर सकते, बट अपने ओन पे अगर कोई थोड़ा ज़रा पैसों वाला लड़का है तो हम कर लेते थे, बट जनरली वो ये होता था। सो HEC की पहले कहा जाता था कि वो फंडिंग वगैरह थी और फिर उन्होंने उसको कट डाउन करते करते और फिर यही कि यूनिवर्सिटी ऑटोनमस बॉडी हुई, और ये तो जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर आया उसने, आपका क्या ख्याल है कि इस चीज़ को पॉजिटिवली कंट्रीब्यूट किया या उससे नुकसान हुआ है हमारी क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन को, रिसर्च को स्पेशली?
देखिए, Aga Khan is a private university, LUMS is a private university. I just named these two because everybody knows them. They are the top institutions. So private is not per se good or bad. But overall, I would say that they have had a phenomenally beneficial impact because इन्होंने तालीम दी है। Now, सब MIT नहीं होते हैं। अमेरिका के अंदर 4000 यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं, there are different categories of them and they have different roles. So research के अंदर भी we have great contributions, whether it is from the University of Lahore or whether it is University of Central Punjab or many other institutions. But research जो है वो चलती है फंडिंग से, और फंडिंग आती है या गवर्नमेंट से या इंडस्ट्री से। हमारी इंडस्ट्री जो है फॉर व्हाटएवर huge complex number of reasons, they are not in the business of innovation. तो रह जाती है गवर्नमेंट। अब गवर्नमेंट का अगर ऊपर नीचे ये होता रहे जिस तरह अब ये हो रहा है कि अच्छी भली फंडिंग जा रही थी एंड देन पकड़ के काट लिया, एंड यू थिंक अबाउट इट, यू नो 7 kilometers of road that was to be built in Lahore, 7, okay. The amount of money involved was higher than the entire budget of HEC. That's how the comparison works. कुछ भी नहीं है। I mean, अगर आप ये बात करें 50 billion, 60 billion, 100 billion, what is it? With a dollar at 175, $1 billion would be 175 billion rupees. And इस वक्त हमारी यूनिवर्सिटीज की फंडिंग I think वो 70 billion है या something. So it is criminal what we are doing as far as starving our children is concerned. और थोड़ा सा पैसा, बहुत थोड़ा सा पैसा, and you can work miracles actually. Not only that, you need to have consistency. आज ये किया, मतलब who is going to start or do anything or invest anything अगर ये नहीं पता कि यार ये 4-5 साल, क्योंकि in the domain of education short term कुछ नहीं होता. There's nothing. I mean, आप मुझे कहो कि अगले साल आप क्या करोगे, मैं कुछ भी नहीं करूँगा, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? I don't work in a regime in which it makes a difference from one year to the next. So that is where the consistency of government policies and fundings are required. We worked with the World Bank for that. We, got significant, inroads, developed, $300 million loan. उसकी एक कंडीशन होती थी कि ये लोन मिलेगा कि गवर्नमेंट पैसे देगी, लेकिन वो क्या करते, वो हर वक्त गेम्स खेल रहे होते थे कि जी हम उनको ये चीज दिखाएंगे, अंदर से हम ये करेंगे। well, वो हमें 70 साल हो गए लोगों को बेवकूफ बनाते हुए, अब हमारा ये हाल हो गया, अब देखो कौन बेवकूफ है और कौन नहीं।
बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया। और दूसरा सर जो पीएमडीसी का आपने वो पॉइंट आउट किया कि वो उसको नहीं उसमें आने देते टीचिंग फैकल्टी में ड्यू टू देयर रिस्ट्रिक्शन। सो उनकी जो लॉज और पॉलिसीज़ हैं, क्या वो एचईसी के साथ बैठ के नहीं बनाई गई उस टाइम?
नहीं, आई थिंक ये जो डॉक्टर कम्युनिटी है ये एक अलग चीज है। It's just a world to its own. And it's actually in most parts of the world it is like that. Medical school जो होता है ना वो एक अलग चीज होती है। So this government now, in fact, is trying to work at it. I'm not in the middle of it, so I don't know what the details are. But we did try and we did succeed to some degree in working with PMDC के भाई सिस्टम्स आप अपना लो, हमने आपको कंट्रोल नहीं करना है, लेकिन आप अपने आप के ऊपर क्वालिटी एश्योरेंस प्रोसेसेस ऐसे लगाओ कि ताकि you become open and you become transparent, and they worked on that. Want to especially note the work that was done by Dr. Mubashir at the University of Health Sciences in Lahore. It was phenomenal. He brought this examination. He had dreams कि इस एग्जाम से हमारा डायरेक्ट इंटरनेशनल कंपैटिबिलिटी होगी, क्या कोई एग्जाम दोबारा नहीं लेना पड़ेगा। एंड they built a very credible and a fantastic system. Look at what happened in engineering. Pakistan Engineering Council eventually joined the Washington Accord. So that means that our engineers are at par with the best in the world. So there were successes and regression. That's the way it goes.
Okay. So what I feel, because I have background, my father is actually from cardiologist, and he always discussion like कि PMDC ने कुछ ऐसी गलतियाँ और हरकतें भी की जिसकी वजह से स्पेशली प्राइवेट सेक्टर में ऐसा हुआ। और यही वो बताते थे कि मुबशर साहब के बाद जब UHS ने एक एग्जांपल तो कायम करना चाहिए, बट करंटली लास्ट जितना मुझे अब इस वक्त तो नहीं पता, लेकिन 2016 और 17 में उनका मौक़िफ़ था कि यूनिवर्सिटी हेल्थ साइंसेज भी अब उस तरह से काम नहीं कर रही जो कि पहले उसको करना चाहिए था, वो सेंट्रलाइजेशन। और उसमें व्हाट आई वांट टू आस्क के आप जैसी पर्सनैलिटीज़ जो हैं, आप मैं देख रहा था फाउंडिंग मेंबर इसमें किर्गिस्तान के हैं, मतलब पीछे क्यों चले गए आप लोग? आगे क्यों नहीं आके इन चीज़ों को मतलब करते कि ये जो गैप्स हैं इनको ख़त्म करके हम एक मॉडल में ले आएँ? बट आई फील कि आपने थोड़ा सा डिसअपॉइंटमेंट का इजहार किया, लेकिन मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि आप जैसी पर्सनैलिटी को आना चाहिए उसमें।
देखिए, there are sort of one goes through different stages in life, and there are different priorities at different times. Also, there is a time and a place for you to take the lead and provide leadership, and then the next one needs to come up. Now, I stayed in HEC until there was an internal revolt in HEC because the BPS holders they got into a fight with the others, and there was all kinds of conspiracy going on, और वहाँ पे नारे लग रहे थे कि जो नकवी का यार है गद्दार है, and it was a physical assault also. But more than that, when the government the prime minister becomes against you, what in the world can you do? एंड में तो एक ही आदमी है ना, मतलब कितना प्राइम मिनिस्टर का भी आदमी जंग करे, वो भी की जाके सुप्रीम कोर्ट में। So then just you take a step back and you say, okay, you live to fight another day. And I must commend Dr. Atta because he's the grittiest person that I know. He never ever gave up and found the opportunity, and then he's trying his best कि भाई HEC को दोबारा उजागर किया जाए। But forget HEC, इदारों यूनिवर्सिटीज को इल्म को वो जगह मिले। बात सिर्फ सारी ये है कि does knowledge have the place in our society, in our mentality that it should, the respect that it needs. जो भी जिसके पास भी knowledge है, that is the person that you are promoting and developing. So this is the way life goes. You go up, then you take a step back, you take a breather, and you come back again.
ओके ओके सो करंटली सर थोड़ा अगर सेंट्रल एशिया यूनिवर्सिटी का बताइएगा कि इनका जो सिस्टम है इट्स सिमिलर टू आवर स्टैंडर्ड्स और देयर आर ह्यूज डिफरेंस.
देखिए हायर एजुकेशन जो है वो दुनिया में अब बेसिकली एक किस्म की है. देयर इज ओनली essentially the rules of the game are uniform. So you have the world split up into different units, but they are more or less sort of combined. You have the North American with the American systems, and then you have the Bologna world with, I think they have 48 countries or 49 countries. Basic उसका जो principle होता है कि इदारे autonomous होते हैं, लेकिन they are subject to quality assurance, and the quality assurance body is independent. So that is very important, and the quality assurance body is itself quality assured. So if you were to, in politics, this would mean that, for example, the office of the prime minister, uski jo quality assurance hai wo parliament kar rahi hai. Because हर system जो होता है ना वो check और balance से established होता है. So इदारे autonomous होने का कुछ मतलब नहीं. It means that they write down the rules of the game that they will obey, and then somebody else comes and certifies that they are obeying that. So in that way, the institutions, higher education institutions of the world, the universities of the world, they all subscribe to the same rules of the game. And this university is a very unique and a very different kind of project. It's a project of the Aga Khan Development Network. It's the second university of the Aga Khan Development Network after Aga Khan University. And it was formed as a result of an international agreement being signed between the governments of Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and the Aga Khan Development Network. And so we have campuses in all of these three countries, and we work like a regular university, which means we have bachelor degree programs, but we also have a very large short cycle training program. So from anything from accountancy to IT to language, etc. And then we have research institutes also. But overall, it's a small endeavor. Abhi shuru hua hai. We just put in phase 1. And so my responsibility was to put in the systems for the university. We graduated our first batch this year. Undergraduate is waqt. Future mein, the strategy is to have bigger campuses and higher levels.
और यहाँ पर उस तरह का कोई कंट्रोलिंग वाला मसला नहीं है. You can do anything whatever you like.
Well, we have the normal governance or management system दुनिया का होता है कि एक board of trustees होती है. Board of trustees, they work on defining the rules of the game. And then you have the management with a chief executive, a rector, president of the university, whatever you want to call that, who operates within the rules of the game and is accountable to the board. So that's the same way that we operate also.
Okay. So I think we should ask to the audience if they want to ask question from Professor Sohail Naqvi. So it will be appreciable अगर आप कुछ पूछना चाहें सर से, क्योंकि आखिरी 10 मिनट है हमारे पास.
मेरा क्वेश्चन है सर से, माशाल्लाह से बड़ी अच्छी एक कंस्ट्रक्टिव डिस्कशन चल रही है. थैंक यू सो मच. मैं बड़ा ऑनर फील कर रही हूँ. और सबसे मजे की बात ये कि आपकी और मेरी जो सब्जेक्ट वाइज हमारी फील्ड है वो कॉमन है. मैंने भी मास्टर्स किया है इन अप्लाइड फिजिक्स फ्रॉम यूटी लाहौर, और मेरे लिए बड़ी ऑनर की बात है कि आपसे बात हो रही है. सिर्फ हम एजुकेशन सिस्टम के कुछ फ्लॉज को भी यहाँ पे डिस्कस ऑब्वियसली कर रहे हैं. आपने बहुत सारी चीजें हाईलाइट की, जिनमें एक चीज जो मैंने बहुत ज्यादा फील किया कि देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ पॉलिटिकल इंटरफेरेंस इन आवर एजुकेशन सिस्टम, जैसे कि आपने भी अभी इसका जिक्र किया. तो पाकिस्तान में किस तरह से आप समझते हैं कि इस इंटरफेरेंस को कम किया जा सकता है? बिकॉज आई थिंक दीज आर द टू डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स. चीजें वाकई कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश की जाती हैं, जैसे कि यहाँ पे अपॉइंटमेंट्स ट्रांसफर्स हैं, फिर वायलेशन ऑफ मेरिट सिस्टम है. ये सारी चीजें अगर इसकी रूट बेस देखी जाए तो ये अगेन पॉलिटिक्स से ही लिंक कर रही होती हैं. बहुत ज्यादा जो इंटरफेरेंस है एजुकेशन सिस्टम में सियासतदानों का या सियासत का, उसको किस तरह से कम किया जा सकता है? मेरा ख्याल है कि जो एजुकेशनिस्ट जो उस चीज को ऑन कर रहे होते हैं, क्या वो ये अलाउ करते हैं, क्या वो कैपेबल नहीं है उस सिस्टम को चलाने के लिए, कि वो बाहर से इंटरफेरेंस जो आती है फिर वो एजुकेशन सिस्टम में फ्लॉज बढ़ाती है? किस तरह से इसको कम किया जा सकता है इन कंपैरिजन ऑफ द सिस्टम जहाँ पे आप काम कर रहे हैं? उस हवाले से आप क्या सजेस्ट करते हैं पाकिस्तान के एजुकेशन सिस्टम के लिए?
जी, देखिए, जितनी देर मैं 8 साल एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर था HEC का, उन 8 साल में मैं I was the chief executive. You had continuity, you had a commission, बाकी लोग भी आए गए। उस 8 साल के दरमियान के अंदर 11 एजुकेशन सेक्रेटरीज चेंज हुए और लगभग इतने ही सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस और इतने ही सेक्रेटरी प्लानिंग, और ये आज भी यही हो रहा है।
आज भी यही हो रहा है,
ठीक है, अभी सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस को चेंज किया दोबारा। ये जो सिक्योरिटी ऑफ टेन्योर है ये क्रिटिकल है। लोग हमारे पास टैलेंटेड लोग, दयानतदार लोग, केपेबल लोग, उनकी कोई कमी नहीं है, लेकिन तो प्रॉब्लम अकर्स कि ये जो एक टूल है ना पोस्टिंग ट्रांसफर का, ये डिस्ट्रॉय करता है। इफ यू गो इनटू द सेक्रेटरी एजुकेशन ऑफिस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पंजाब, पुर गाय हर वक्त एक ना दूसरा पॉलिटिशियन आ रहा है, वो टस्का के प्राइमरी स्कूल का वो जो है ना बंदा इधर से उठा के उधर लगा दो। एंड यू थिंक अबाउट इट, पंजाब में 64,000 स्कूल्स हैं, वो 64,000 स्कूल्स का चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव है ये सेक्रेटरी, एंड ऑल यू वांट टू डू फॉर द पुअर गाय इज टू आस्क हिम कि भाई तुम यहाँ पे पोस्टिंग करो, यहाँ पे ट्रांसफर करो, और देन खुद वो 3 महीने रहता है, 4 महीने रहता है, एंड देन ही इज गॉन। सो इट इज जब तक ये चीज जो है ना खत्म नहीं होगी, एंड इवन इन पाकिस्तान, इफ यू वांट एन एग्जांपल, इन द पाकिस्तान आर्मी वंस यू गेट अ पोस्टिंग यू कैन नॉट बी ट्रांसफर। द चीफ चेंजेस, कोई कोर कमांडर तो नहीं चेंज होता कभी। देयर इज अ टर्म, देयर इज ए टेन्योर। इसका सुप्रीम कोर्ट का भी पाकिस्तान का डिसीजन आया हुआ है। आप एक चीज ये वाली इंप्लीमेंट कर दें, यू विल हैव enormous change. The other thing is, चलो नहीं अगर होता तो what can you do as a person? Well, the one thing that you can do as a person is that you can say no. There is no reason why you have to do something जो मेरिट की खिलाफ वर्जी करेगा कि एक बच्चे का दाखिला कराना है। एंड उस लिहाज से I would say कि universities are way ahead than the other entities in Pakistan. यहाँ पे फिर भी मेरिट का खासा बोलबाला है, लेकिन अभी एक रीसेंट केस हुआ है, there was a मुबशर है, आई थिंक इसका नाम है, पाकिस्तानी साइंटिस्ट,
हाँ, जो रिनाउंड हुए हैं बहुत ज्यादा।
हाँ, and I asked him, why did you leave Pakistan? और उसकी रीजन, I won't discuss the reason, it's a private reason. It was an entirely trivial bureaucratic matter. किसी को मौका मिला कि मैं इसको दबा दूं, ये साला बड़ा पब्लिशिंग करता है, ये करता है, वो करता है, and that is a story that is, it breaks your heart, and that is what happens in Pakistan all the time, कि ये एक दूसरे की टांग, which is separate from a posting issue. Okay, this is now people actively doing something wrong. Okay, and उसके लिए तो you need the systems to catch them and do something with them.
बिल्कुल। Amal, you want to ask anything more?
जी सर, एक और चीज है कि ये सारी चीजें फिर एजुकेशन सिस्टम की तबाही का बायस मुझे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं प्रोफेशनल जेलिसी भी कहीं टेक ओवर करती है, और जब प्रोफेशनल जेलिसी उठती है कहीं से भी तो फिर लेग पुलिंग का एक सिस्टम, वो एक सिलसिला शुरू हो जाता है। तो आपकी माशाल्लाह इतनी अच्छी एक सक्सेस स्टोरी है, जिस तरह से आपने ग्रो किया, उसमें आपने किस तरह इन चीजों से कोप अप किया? ऑब्वियसली जब आपका ओहदा बढ़ता है तो प्रोफेशनल जेलिसी भी उतनी ज्यादा बढ़ती है और लेग पुलिंग का भी एक सिस्टम बढ़ता है। अब आप जिस सिस्टम में है, क्या वहां पर प्रोफेशनल जेलिसी या लेग पुलिंग का सिलसिला जो है वो 0% है, या इसको आप किस तरह से कंपेयर करेंगे पाकिस्तान, और किस तरह कोप अप करते हैं आप? इन चीजों को कैसे फेस करते हैं और किस तरह से इसको फिर खत्म करने की कोशिश की जाती है?
ये बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है। पाकिस्तान में ये लेग पुलिंग और प्रोफेशनल जेलसी को बहुत जगह मिलती है, एंड सो द आइडियल मिक्स दैट यू लुक फॉर इन पाकिस्तान इज कि आदमी कहे कि यार मैंने तो गलत चीज नहीं करनी, लेकिन आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू लेट एनीबडी एल्स do that to me either. Now for the second part to be true, then you have to belong to a class of Pakistan जहाँ पे फिर आप फोन उठा के उस जो बंदा आपको गलत चीज करना चाह रहा है उसको आप चुप करा सकते हैं. And so that is a part of trying to live and cope in Pakistan is कि अगर खुद गलत नहीं करना तो that is one thing which you have to do, but you also have to protect yourself कि कोई दूसरा ना आपको कर सके. उसके लिए आपको अपने दोस्त अहबाब का सर्कल चाहिए होता है जो कि फिर काउंटर कर सकें प्रेशर को. In other parts of the world this thing exists to a much smaller degree. मैंने आपसे अमेरिका का जिक्र किया, मैं किसी को नहीं जानता. My appointment as assistant professor, my promotion, grant of tenure, whether it was a research contract or awarded, nothing ever happened. No phone call was ever made. And we tried to create that HEC के we said we don't care. ना हमने कभी किसी से कहा कि आप हमें scholarship के लिए लिखें या आएं या बात करें या खाना खिलाएं or whatever, and you try and work it that way. So in your own circle, within your what you are capable of do, you implement that. But क्योंकि आपको होश हवास के साथ काम करना है, also understand कि ये गलत चीजें होती हैं, तो then also work कि ये अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करें किसी तरह से जितनी डिग्री हो सकती है from other people harming.
बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है. Thank you so much, sir. It was very wonderful discussion. Although it was serious, but it was very interactive as well. आखिर में सर आपका मैसेज चाहिए होगा रिगार्डिंग माय दिस स्मॉल एक्टिविटी जो मैं करता हूँ, डिफरेंट स्पीकर्स को बुलाता हूँ फॉर द बेटरमेंट, कि हम और नहीं तो कुछ अच्छे वर्ड्स भी फैला सकें अगर हम कुछ और नहीं कर सकते. एंड वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन जस्ट फॉर enlightenment our moods and for practical approach. सर आपने अपनी प्रोफेशनल लाइफ के साथ what I want to ask from you, when you did get married and what you feel कि आपके लाइफ पार्टनर का कितना असरअंदाज होता है आपके प्रोफेशनल कैरियर पे?
Well, I got married in my last year of PhD, and so प्रोफेशनल पार्टनर का तो मतलब everything depends on that, because if you do not have peace and support, there's nothing that you can accomplish. And then the advice that you get from your partner on issues that are coming, because there are good times and there are really difficult bad times. That is absolutely critical to keep you going. So ये जो personal partnership होती है आपकी और आपके spouse की, this is absolutely fundamental to succeed in life, and that is an acknowledgement that you should have at all times.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words, and I hope I will share the recording as well. People would enjoy. And Professor Sohail Naqvi हमारे साथ थे, former Vice Chancellor of University Management Sciences, and currently he is the Rector of Central Asia University Kyrgyzstan. So I would invite him again with the new good topic as well. Thank you so much, sir. Inshallah, आपसे.
Thank you, Farhan, and thank you everybody for listening here. Okay. Khuda Hafiz.
Allah.
Thank you so much.
डॉक्टर साहब जो है वो बहुत प्रैक्टिकल वो जो मामला हैं हमारे